Okay, so we're going to continue with the VlE series. This is Le Retour de l'Empereur. Excuse my pronunciations, of course. This is the biggie for me. Waterloo and the whole, series, the 4 battles, all done at once. Now, obviously, the 4 battles aren't fought at once. But this is my setup. We have Carabras here, Ligny, Wavre, and then Waterloo. Now you could say, well, wait a minute, why aren't they connected? Well, yeah, that's one of the problems. There's enough space between these that only Carabras and Ligny are actually fully mapped. In order to set this up, the game comes with these silly, it's like a DTP, Pratson did this. And I'm told that's Demoralization, little company for this. But it was sold through Grognard Games. They have these silly little borders around all the things. I think we had this in the Red Sash stuff too, which is also DTP. Anyway, unlike the other 4 battle game I have, which is Berg's Waterloo, this one actually tries to cover handling, moving from one battle to the other. And it does that with some special rules here. With this transit map here, and this is going to be the number of hours for cavalry or infantry to cross those. Now that changes when there's rain, and there's potential for rain. When I set this up, I think that, I don't know if I said this, I've been drinking. This is the second biggest thing that I think I've played solo in terms of just the total mappage. The biggest was, of course, the first thing that I played on video, the 7 days thing, which I thought was worthy of enshrining, which is why I started my video operation. Anyway, when I started setting this up, I've been kind of, I like the VlE series, but maybe it's not everything I want. But I tell you, as I started to set this up, just the magnitude and the regal situation of Waterloo and the whole campaign setup just really kind of sunk in. And I'm more excited about this, and I certainly was last night when I first started doing this. Yes, it takes me a whole day to set something this size up. I worked and everything too, and played some video games, and spammed. But with all of that, it just really sunk in, and I got more excited and felt this tingly feeling. I couldn't sleep last night at all, so you've got me really wired as well. I think I had 2 hours of sleep last night because I woke up, my head was cold. Been using crap to try to grow my hair back. Yeah. My eyes are going, my body's going, my hair's going. Figured I could fix one. And the neat thing that I found out about it was it seems to actually stimulate my brain a little bit. It's the minoxidil stuff. It's a blood thinner, and I'm worried that the clogging of the arteries has caused my brain to not operate quite as well as it used to. But I'm a little more flighty, and I'll tell you one thing. This is the opposite of how I feel about I gotta be careful here. How I feel about smoking. Smoking, I think, actually dampens my brain, and I needed that at one point in my life, and now I think maybe I've dampened it too much. Anyway, we'll see. So let's get back to the game. What we have is a situation where we're going to be fighting out these 2 battles, which are adjoined. We don't have pure freedom as to what we can do. Now, there are options galore in this, as there are in all the VlE games, but I'm going to try to play as close to the historical as I can. One of the problems with this is once you dig things out, you can get almost the entirety of the reinforcement schedule for it, which is going to be these couple of pages here. But I was left with a couple of units that are not optional units. There are some optional units here. One which is really out of the ordinary, the 10th Corps, which was over in the Vendée at this point. But there was a possibility that Napoleon could have brought it along. But the other is actually a bunch of forces that Wellington is using because Napoleon had him completely bamboozled here. Now, a lot of people consider the Waterloo and the 100 days leading up to it to be one of Napoleon's greatest achievements. And in a lot of ways, you could say it was. He totally knew his opponent and completely predicted what his opponent would do. Unfortunately for him, his opponent's subordinates didn't necessarily pay attention to Wellington, and Napoleon's own subordinates kind of failed things, and there were a number of cock-ups that really led to problems, which is why there's a lot of what-ifs here. What if D'Erlon showed up at one of the two battles? One of the key issues here is D'Erlon's First Corps, which is a mighty corps. If you've ever played Empires in Arms or any of the tactical games with the First Corps in it, you know it generally tends to really kick butt. Well, it was officially assigned to Ney, and some orders came. Was it from Napoleon, or was it? Yeah, I think it was from Napoleon. To release D'Erlon over into Ligny, where he's planning his major attack on the Prussians. And the orders made it to D'Erlon, but they never made it to Ney. And when Ney found out that D'Erlon was heading the wrong way, and not to the battle that he thought he needed him at, he countermanded those orders and said, "Get the hell back here. We need you. We're in the major battle here." Well, what Ney didn't understand was Napoleon's goal was to fight the major battle over at Ligny. Maybe Napoleon hadn't made that decision early in the situation. But anyway, it ended up being this total confusion where D'Erlon is marching and counter-marching back and forth and never actually makes it to either battlefield in time. I believe he ends up back in Quatre-Bras just as the battle's winding down and the day's ending. The battle starts kind of late. I think we're starting at 1 p.m. at Ligny and 2 p.m. at Quatre-Bras, if I recall correctly. Maybe it's the opposite. And basically, the way you handle this in the game is, hey, just wait. One battle's frozen until it starts, which works fine, I guess. We'll see. Position-wise, well, okay. So each of these battles can be done in separation. You have options to link Wavre and Waterloo together, or Ligny and Quatre-Bras. And Ligny and Quatre-Bras obviously make the most sense. The Wavre-Waterloo connection has more to do with how you want to associate what Grouchy might have done had he tried to be somewhat competent and tried to follow the actual orders he had instead of the ones he thought he had, which, were, first of all, so here's what was confusing was after Ligny, in which the Prussians were fairly heavily defeated, but not wiped out. Napoleon's plan was to wipe them out, and if he had D'Erlon, some people believe he could have more or less destroyed them as a functioning force. Well, after that, he sends Grouchy off to pursue with a part of his army, and Wavre occurs, which is a small battle, basically a rear guard happening for the Prussians as the rest of Blücher's force heads over to Waterloo and basically signals the time limit end of Waterloo, where all kinds of horrible stuff happens, more assaults, etc., simply to try to end things try to end the Brits before the Prussians get there. But anyway, kind of meander about here. You can see I've eaten up a lot of my space. So meanwhile, as this force is moving down and Grouchy is pursuing Blucher and ends up losing him at Wavre, the force here, well, there's a one-day break in between the battles where Wellington pulls out and withdraws, and there is no real pursuit at Ligny. And once the pursuit gets underway, some rain starts. This is all recorded. There's a turn record sheet here. This is just Cadabra. There's ones that cover the whole battle. There we go. There's one that covers the whole battle. And you can see we have nighttime, then we have the morning comes by, and then it rains throughout the night. Now that causes additional problems, both in terms of moving through the Wavre roads over to Waterloo, and then also in terms of Napoleon's delayed tremendously with his attack in Waterloo. And I'm not quite sure, I don't remember seeing anything that handles that well in the campaign, that delay that Napoleon experienced at Waterloo. And we may have to make up some rules to handle that. All right. Let's look at the board situation, and then we'll look at some of the specific rules here. So, for the board situation, we have Ney and his command Real. These are some guard units here. He's basically facing some of the Prince of Orange's forces. Now, the reinforcements for the Ligny map are all set up here, and those stretch into that intermediate day where very little basically happens. And over here on Ligny, likewise, we have the reinforcements set up here. They're almost all French. The 4th Corps, Bulow, has been sent off to help guard a flank, and now he's going to be called in later. And I'm trying to remember. So what historically happened was he briefly shows up at Ligny during the withdrawal and then comes back here. In the campaign game, he has the option of showing up either on the Wavre or Ligny map, depending on what you want to do with him. Speaking of the Ligny map, a bunch of Prussians here. What's here? This is the 1st Corps sitting up here, holding most of the key terrain. And this is some pretty good defensive terrain. There's some walled farms and stuff like that, and villages and everything that are going to really slow down any kind of French advance. And it looks like, wow, there are a lot of Prussians and not a whole hell of a lot of French. And that's true to begin with, but we got reinforcements coming. Another Prussian 2nd Corps sitting here, which I'm planning on heading this way and coming around to try to protect the flank there. But the problem with that is there's a couple of units of the French 2nd Corps up here on this hill. Now the 2nd Corps is not part of Ligny. Most of it's over here. And then over here we have the 3rd Corps, which I'm planning on sending down this way. The difficulty with that is I've got a bunch of Grouchy's cav there. And we've seen that cav can be pretty potent here, but I don't know about unsupported cav, and that's what that is. So I'm not too unhappy with the Prussian situation. Wellington's view on it was, if the battle's here, we're doomed. And it turned out that way. Cadabra is kind of interesting in and of itself because Wellington sent orders to withdraw from here, whereas Napoleon sent orders to just plow through, well, not to plow through, but for Ney to grab Cadabra so that he can protect the flank and then use d'Erlon to outflank the Prussian army. And he was planning on splitting the two armies, and had Wellington gotten what he wanted done, there would be no defense here, because Wellington is terribly worried about his ports and his ability to supply his army, which is why Hill's army, or Hill's Corps, is off here somewhere. Now those come in at some unspecified time in the game. They're present at Waterloo. They're not present, obviously, over here at Cadabra or Ligny, but when could they have arrived? Because there's a scenario and a possibility in the Grand Campaign that the Allies could decide to try to hold the Ligny-Cadabra line. I don't think they can really hold it, but I feel like Cadabra is the weak point, strangely enough, but whatever. And at that point, then you have withdrawals possible, and the Prussians presumably withdraw this way. There's no real reason to force them to, except if they lose, you know, the junction at Cadabra or the road running between Ligny and Cadabra. And there might be strong reasons to ignore Wavre completely. There's not really a strong reason for the Prussian army to head in this direction, except the 4th Corps is over here, and you kind of don't want to abandon them. They're fairly strong and can be pretty potent. Anyway, let's see. I guess we should go over some of the special rules for the scenario. So each of the scenarios has its own little special rules, because each one is its own little 1 or 2 map, in the case of Ligny and Waterloo, battle. And then each also has its own reasonable variants. So the special rules in this scenario, this is, I think, Cadabra here. So some of the Allied units are set up in a way that's illegal. Like in the Spanish battles, they have to kind of stay near each other. Units that are of the same battalion or brigade have to remain adjacent to each other. I'm going to try the best I can to hold to that rule, but as we found with the Spanish battles, you may not be able to. Units get disordered and such not, and you've got to try to bring them together, but I'm not going to try to the maximum intent, which is to say, if one unit's disordered and flung back, I'm not going to run back and go join them, you know. Guard light cavalry. So Ney has these guys, which Napoleon told him not to use. And the rules on that are, they can countercharge and move however they like, but if they want to charge, Ney has to be stacked with them. And if they take any losses, those are going to count as 5 losses each for demoralizing the 2nd Corps, which is his main force at the beginning of the battle. We have some attachments. So here, the best brigade is attached to Picton. Okay, well, so what? Well, that's not his corps, and that's kind of the problem here. I'm sorry, brigade, division. Best is over here under Cole. Picton's over here. That brings to point an interesting factor, which is this game does not take any general rule for handling attachment and detachment. And it was such a common feature that I feel like if I feel the need to attach or detach things, I'm just going to write it into my orders and we're going to follow it. We'll try to keep the demoralization levels based on the original units, though, instead. Each of the scenarios handles their own demoralization levels, so in that case, Best's units would count against Picton and, you know, would be affected by Picton's losses, which makes more sense, but without some rules to balance that out all the time, I'm just not going to bother with it. I think, you know, there's a certain level of ignoring details that is reasonable, especially in this game, which doesn't go into so much granularity in a lot of things. For a regimental game, it's surprisingly light. Demoralization in every one of the battles in this is by corps, so I've got to keep track of every corps loss. That's not so bad, though. Unlike some of the others, what we have here is each corps has its own demoralization levels. Now, the Allied demoralization is a little different, because their forces, the British, well, the Anglo-Dutch army, The Anglo-Dutch Army's demoralization works by the first demoralization level demoralizes the non-British units. The second demoralization demoralizes the British units and whatever the next level is, despair or whatever, I don't remember what it's called, affects the non-British units. And then finally the third level puts the British units into that desperation morale. That's what it's called. Okay. The Prince of Orange starts the map as the army leader, but as soon as Wellington comes on the board, he stops being an army leader. He's only got one order per turn. We've got specific, amount of orders people can have. Again, lots of different options, including it there alone comes hard into Quatre Bras. For the Ligny side, yeah, Ligny's the early start, an hour earlier. Let's see if we have anything special here that I need to talk about. Looks like very little. They talk about using the optional disorder rules for towns. We're going to use those. There's some general rules, and I scratch on them somewhat so far. We'll get to more of them later. Yeah. Okay. So Gerard Duret and Jacques Guinaud are commanded by Vandamme. Gerard is over here, which isn't exactly near Vandamme, who's back here. And I'm going to allow him to do what I want him to do, which is deploy up on these hills, which probably isn't exactly what he should be doing, but I kind of want to do that. And then I can recall him if need be. They suggest again using the town morale. The French were singing before the main assault, while the Prussians were silent. Oh, this is a specific scenario, right? Oh, geez. It's hard to tell. It's the historical. Yeah, this is the La Victoire en Chantant. Okay, so that doesn't have that special rule, but here it's also included the command rules that I was talking about in terms of who's under Vandamme. And then we have some additional ones here. Some of them are just smaller ones, some of them are alternative scenarios. We have D'Arlon coming in again. We have the French coming in better order. So there's a couple of different options there, where Mouton, who Napoleon kind of forgot to give orders to, basically. Yeah, he doesn't seem to be at his top here, and that's why I kind of question this. Was this really his best campaign? Certainly this last part of it doesn't seem as impressive. The speed with which he deployed his army into Belgium is impressive. His plan was impressive, but his actual effecting of that plan seems a little questionable, like waiting around until noon to get moving on some days and stuff like that. Of course, he probably was very ill in general. So then we have some historical discussion of the Intermission Day, and it's possible that you can do a second battle day at Ligny and Quatre Bras if the Allies wish to stay here, or they can try to withdraw. Then, for whatever reason, they go with the Waterloo rules next, which I think, since Wavre starts, well, Wavre actually doesn't start earlier than Waterloo, but it could. So we're not too sure what to do with the special rules for Wavre, because for the most part, these are very dependent on what goes where. So we may have to kind of fudge these as we're going along. And that's pretty much, hey, we're trying to cover the main broad strokes that this campaign might follow. But we really can't tell you what'll happen if you, send the whole French army marching into Wavre. What is going on there, right? And then there's this gap here where maybe there are no good roads, so you really can't advance this way. You've got to really choose either this road or the main road jumping. Now this goes to Namur, which is not this road. I'm not sure where this connects. Looks like we got this goes to Wav. Not sure. There may be a transition there. We'll have to see. Okay. So for Waterloo itself, there are some interesting special rules. One of which is Hougoumont is a better place than anything else on the field. And what's really strange with this map is that the French are coming in, and really a lot of the fighting happens here and then here. They really don't make it to Mont Saint-Jean. Here's Hougoumont. There's again a lot of fortified positions to defend, and really a lot of this map, I'm not sure why it exists. I almost feel like, hey, there should be more here and less up there, maybe. I don't know why the choice was made to extend the map so far to the north. By the way, when I went to Waterloo, I never actually found the battlefield. I thought I got lost over in the same woods that Grouchy got lost in for a while. But no, I was lost right here near Waterloo itself. I never actually made it far enough south to make to the battle. Yeah. I was very close to it. Very close to the monument, at least. At one point. Anyway. Let me see. What am I... Yeah... Okay, so special rules for the Prussians coming on the battlefield through wet roads. And it's not really that big. It just says that they come in kind of piecemeal, which I've been doing anyway. I've been assuming that units are moving on road column. There's no real rules in the system for that, but it's always what seems most reasonable to me. And so I just do what's reasonable. I don't know. The no units stacked, though, is a little different. And then some realignment of units again. An option for the guard activation for Waterloo itself, because Napoleon doesn't know what's going on at Wavre, and he doesn't know when the Prussians are coming. He's worried. He can't commit the guard, and so he's actually restricted from using some of his guard units until Prussians come on the board. And then he either has to commit them against the Brits, or he can move them against the Prussians, and he actually historically did both, kind of. He's got some that he's free to use, though. He's allowed to use the French guard, the Young Guard, and I don't know what, and the 6th Corps. Again, a bunch of scenarios here. Strawberries for Grouchy. An option to get rid of the rain, an option to bring Prince Frederick in with a bunch of the forces that he left behind guarding the flank over here at Wellington's orders. So again, you have a lot of choices there. For the Wavre battle, this is one of the more complicated. It's got options in it to just really handle. A lot of it is to handle what Grouchy might have done, which I feel like there's nothing to really screw Grouchy over in the Grand Campaign. So he's probably going to be cleverer if he's sent. But who knows, you know. Now, there are a couple of bridges here that are damaged that the French will have to repair if they want to cross them. The river, the Dial, is impassable. There are no fords. There's no random events in this one. Okay, and then we come up with all these rules for combining the different scenarios and what you can do with them. And the final is to combine the grand campaign. And what you really have to do if you want to get the reinforcement chart, and I think I've mostly gotten it, is you have to dig through each of the scenarios. And in some cases, there's some units that don't come in as reinforcements in any of the scenarios. So for example, Hill and the units I have back here, which I figure were left behind to guard the supply line. I've communicated with DDRI about this over on Constant World. I'm hoping I can get an answer from him because I'm assuming he has, a better feel for when Hill should be showing up. But if not, I'll just fake it. It's not a big deal. I'm assuming Hill will be showing up on the 17th. That's kind of the midday. That's the past day. Because what I want to make sure is that Hill has some possibility of interacting if the battle goes on the 18th out here, right? He probably can't make it in time on the 17th, so I'm going to make him show up kind of midday on the 17th. He comes in from here, because that's where he is. I don't have any rules that say that. So now these transitions don't really, they do tell you the road. So Cadabra to Waterloo is the road to Brussels. This road. I cannot go from Cadabra to Wavre. I can't do that transition at all, even though there's a road that says it's there. So there's actually two roads to Waterloo. The Nivelle road up here I can take there, but I can't take this road. I think if I take it, I'll say that it takes just as long. Ligny de Wavre takes 3 hours. Whatever. That's going to be this road. I don't know where we pop off because I don't see a to Ligny anywhere. And that worries me. This is tilted a little. Kind of like this. Looks like. Or do I have it upside down? Yeah, I have the map upside down. That's the problem. Okay. So we'll turn Wavre around. There we go. So now we should be able to find it more easily, I think. Yeah, Brussels. Yeah. Yeah, I'm still not seeing an easy way. Let's see. North would be this way. I don't know where that road's going to go to. Let's look in the rules and see if there's anything there. Passing from Ligny to Wavre. Do we have a road here? We don't have it. By the trails leading to the southern edge of Wavre. Okay. So I think I take this and I'll come in through these. And that's the best I can do. Night and rain turns can be used for travel. Night turns cost 3 hours, count as 3 hours for the 2 first and 2 hours for the third. And each rain turn counts as an hour. And we'll see, each rain turn takes an hour, so we're not really slowed down by them, strangely enough. Okay. For reinforcements, they suggest to use Ligny and Cadabra's reinforcements. Add the reinforcements that are listed here, which is if you're going to do a second day at Ligny Cadabra. And then the 4th Prussian Corps comes in on the 17th on either Wavre or Ligny. This is a different time than if there's another way you can add them. Like there's an option maybe over on here, and it doesn't quite align. I don't remember what, like one's at 8 a.m., one's at 10 a.m. So I don't know. There's restrictions during nighttime, where there's no cav charges, no fire. Infantry can only melee if it starts adjacent to the enemy, and you can rally as normal. But if you don't move during all 3 turns of the night, you get 1 step of losses back at the end of the 3rd turn, basically recovering stragglers without having to use the leader recovery roll, which would be really slow. You can't bring back eliminated units. You can also, instead of moving your units, you can rally them. If they spend the whole night not moving and they were in any situation, including routed, they can rally. I don't know if that would include routing. I don't know if they'll camp out while they're routing. Remember, routing's an optional rule, and scenarios don't always work well with such things, but I guess if you're far enough away from the enemy, I wouldn't mind you recovering. One option would be to bring Davout back. He's Minister of War right now. He's proven himself effective throughout all the campaigns, including very late in the war. So they assume he would be either a better commander than Ney or Grouchy, and they give him an army commander rating able to give 3 orders a turn. Or he could be Napoleon's chief of staff instead of Soult. Yeah, can I use Soult for one of my commands? Let me give him Grouchy. In which case, he gives Napoleon infinite orders instead of 3. I don't know if Napoleon really needs infinite orders, but I usually give out 1 order per turn because I don't want to dispatch orders that take too long to get there. But this game's more forgiving than the NBS games when you write orders. And then we have this random, hey, let's throw the 10th Corps in. The options from the other battles could be used as well. Lines of communication defined for each battle. They're pretty much self-explanatory. Okay, what about leadership? So Wellington's command is very flexible historically. And what do they want to do? Well, I don't know. They don't really go into how they can handle all the detachments and attachments that are in the game. Special rules for 3-step artillery, just to define what happens when they take losses. Their first loss drops them to normal artillery. Army morale ratings, I'm going to use these throughout the game instead of trying to balance out different values. Anglo-Allied morale, I've already discussed this. This is where the Allies, the Anglo-Allies, the Brits take 2 demoralization levels before they have any demoralization effect, whereas the Dutch, the King's German Legion, stuff like that, that all becomes demoralized a little earlier. Special rules for repairing bridges, you need to move, it's for the 2 damaged bridges here, they can't be further, you can't damage other bridges. They have to be, basically move a headquarters up to them, spend a couple of turns, and you can repair it, but the headquarters is very easy to fire at, and that'll disrupt this. The special Anglo-Allied forces having to try to keep their brigades together. I'll do my best. VlE. I should probably dig him out and throw him on the board if I can find him. There he is. Let's put Davout over in the optional stuff. VlE is going to be with the guards, if I can find them. They're over here. Okay, so his special ability, he's a doctor, and if he's stacked for 2 full turns with a non-moving unit, he can recover a strength point from it. But he can only do this once per unit. And it's only, well, it doesn't say that it's only with the guard. So he could go he could go do this for other things. It's kind of like what leaders can do in terms of rallying troops, but it's just another ability and another guy who can do this while units are trying to be recovered. There's rules for strategic deployment, but only for Ligny and Waterloo. There's nothing to handle the whole battle. I would kind of like one that handled the Ligny and Quatre-Bras. I don't think it would be too hard to do. Normally you break the map into little segments. In this case, what is it? 8 per? No, 16 squares. So I guess each of these little slices. And you deploy your forces based on those with some limitations. Well, we could add Quatre-Bras to that, and it would become more interesting in that sense. Especially if you made some of the optional units and stuff, made them secret. Unfortunately, there's no point cost or anything associated with them. I also don't know what the victory conditions are. I couldn't find any for the grand campaign. Each scenario has its own. We could just use Waterloo's. Yeah, what if we don't make it to Waterloo? Nothing too special here. This is the normal. Okay, special rules on the Old Guard. Old and Middle Guard infantry. They never decrease their morale due to losses. Hey, didn't the guard break? Yeah, you really have to work hard to do it. You got to get the flanking fire, and you gotta hit them pretty hard. Losses alone aren't going to do it. Okay, he talks about the morale for various units. He's basically fudged these. He's not going a lot with individual unit morale. So Landwehr, he's given all 7s, even though some of them might be more experienced than others. Likewise with the Brits, he's given them all 9 morale. The Guards, he's given them all 11, even though some of the Guard units may be newer Guard units. So there's a little less individuation between the units. I'm a little depressed about that. I would have liked to have seen more. Yeah, there's a French unit that looks British, and boy is that confusing. I put it in my British bag, thought I was missing a unit. It's the Swiss unit. They wore red uniforms, and I think they're actually these guys right here. And I thought I was missing a unit. I thought maybe I had thrown it in the trash accidentally while I was clipping or something. Some of the units were small, so they've been grouped together. That's pretty standard for these games, for the VlE Emperor series. The Congreve rocket only has 1 loss step. It works like an artillery unit, but every time it fires, it rolls again. If it rolls a 6, it manages to destroy itself when it fires. And let us think a little bit about victory conditions here, because we don't understand them. There isn't a set of victory conditions for the combined game. Hey, we could use the Dean Essig rule. If you think you won, you won. So, Wavre has very special victory conditions because you're trying to maybe get off the map with the Prussians, and you're trying to stop them with the Austrians to some extent. Although it really depends on which version you're playing. Waterloo's victory conditions. Maybe there aren't any. There we go. So, you get points for physical locations in Waterloo, as well as for demoralizing corps and the like. I don't see any for casualties there. On the other hand, when we get to, this should be Ligny. Here, again, it's different physical locations. So the question becomes, hey, you know, you can reassess victory at each of the battles and whatever. and then just try to make up what's going to happen over the whole campaign, I guess. Which is kind of what I do anyway, so I don't think that's that terrible. Victory conditions over here on Quatre Bras. If there's no French north of the Neuville to Ligny road, the Anglo-Allies win. It's this road, if we don't get past it at all. If the Anglo-Allies hold Quatre Bras, they win. If the French hold it, they win. So, you know, we have our defined victory conditions. I'll put out little blue chips from over there so that I know what I'm kind of aiming for. But, you know, I know what I'm kind of aiming for. I'm aiming for the good terrain. I'm aiming to try to dislodge and break up the possibility of holding on this map to begin with, and that map, and then finally here, holding on this map. You know, losses, breaking the enemy, all these things will figure into that. A little bit of word about the loss charts for this one. So there are a lot of different loss charts. First of all, each army has a loss chart for the whole campaign or for Waterloo. Well, no, actually Waterloo has its own charts, and they have assessed damage already on them. This is for Ligny, but the Army of the Low Countries chart doesn't really go in any single battle, and it's really only for the Grand Campaign. There are specific charts for Waterloo for each army. There's specific charts for, I think, Wavre and Quatre Bras, but there aren't any for Ligny. And that was clarified. Yep, no, there aren't any. You don't need them. You got the Grand Army charts because they apply. And they do, but it's a little weird because there's some forces that are aligned a little differently, so I'm not sure that's correct. I've tried to set up my reinforcements as I could. There's the Ligny forces, there's the Quatre Bras ones, and we'll get going, see what happens. Probably not really be able to give you a definitive numerical victory condition at any given time, but maybe we'll assess them based on the battle in some random sort of way. Alright, this should be fun. Something very weird in the Ligny scenario, which I'm not sure how to cope with. I may figure something out, but Napoleon is the army leader. He has Grouchy on map with him, and this is something that would happen if Napoleon maybe transited over to Quatre Bras and took command there. Grouchy is the army leader over on Wavre. Okay, that's fine. I don't mind that I'm using the leader for two different things. What's disturbing for me is Grouchy is in charge of the Cav Corps, I think. But then I've got these individual divisions, and the question is, you know, do I have to do a chain of command like I would in a wing? I think the answer is no. I think those individual commanders for the Cav are in case I want to send Cav out to do its own tasks. None of this is specified in the scenario rules, and I don't remember anything quite like it in the original core rules for the system. I haven't read the ones for this particular version, but in the later version I don't remember them present, and I don't remember them present in the newer version, or in the older version. So I'm assuming that they didn't just ephemerally appear. Anyway, what I'm going to do for this is allow Grouchy to be treated as a corps commander like any other corps commander, and those divisional commanders just become excess leaders, unless I end up giving a division a specific order, which I probably will do, because I kind of want to break the Cav Corps up and use it to support each of the individual forces. There's advantages to doing it either way. A massed Cav attack can really blow apart a position, but there's good enough terrain here that I don't know that Cav is going to be a major offensive arm. And that's the same problem over at Waterloo. The terrain's so good, not just the hills, they're not that big a deal, but all these fortified locations and everything, that I don't know that mass Cav charges like Ney did in suffered horribly for, are really the best solution. Now, they still do have their effect, I guess, but I'm also somewhat hesitant to use them anyway. So I'm trying to figure out my French orders. I've gotten everywhere else covered. Maybe not every unit coming in, but here I'm up to Darlon, who comes in, you know, too late to really affect the battle. So I feel like I'm being a little bit more on the ball about getting my pre-orders written for the game. I think earlier today I managed to get down all my orders and actually went beyond the hard part was the Ligny orders, mainly because Van Damme is here facing a pretty strong position. I know more troops are coming, but man, that looks ugly. So what I decided to do with him is I'm going to swing him up this way. He's going to take Saint Armand and move, what is that, west. And then try to cut down the hill here. That's my hope. That puts him closer to these so he can bring them into his line. They're part of his command in this scenario. Gerard comes in along here. I send him up, or I'm sending him up, to take some breath. Grouchy's cav is going to support Gerard. A later cav that's going to come in, Milan, is going to support Van Damme. And then I start getting to things like Druid's Guard, which I look at, I'm like, well, you know, that's not coming in until 6 o'clock. There's plenty of daylight still, but I have no idea what the situation is going to be. And so I'm probably just going to bring him on the board and, you know, have to issue orders to him separately there. Just like I've got all these Brits here coming in late. There's no way I can issue orders to them. Their orders are basically go squat somewhere and wait for orders. Now, for the Prussians, their orders are Thielmann's going to head this way, so we're going to get a clash with Gerard and Grouchy. And not that either side really knows. And Pirch is going to head over here, clear this, and try to head down. So we've got, you know, the moving pieces are all going to clash. We'll see how that works out. Zethan, I didn't have any orders for him, but I need a space for him because I'm playing with fatigue and we'll be keeping track of things. One thing I notice is, geez, you know, I got basically nothing set up here. A couple of units that there's no roles for setting up. I've got nothing over on WAV. I got a lot of table I'm not using. And in general, I think what you could do is play the Ligny Quatre Bras and add tables as needed. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that until I set it all up. I suspected it. But I thought there might be reinforcements marching, you know, across these boards during the first day or whatever. My guess is I'm going to be able to break down the Ligny Quatre Bras tables, or the whole battle is going to be fought on them. It's one way or the other. So you don't really need this much table space. I think you can do with 3 maps at a time for the most part. Maybe 4. Who knows? We'll see. Because WAV may be needed while Ligny's in play. WAV may be needed over with Waterloo. And likewise, Quatre Bras is in the same kind of position where I may need it in play, although the distance traveling here is greater. Over on the Quatre Bras side, very, very simple orders. The French are just trying to take the crossroads. That's what Napoleon told me to do. For the Allies, Orange is just squatting. He might move some units around, but he's basically defending in place. And then Wellington's going to move up to Quatre Bras and try to hold the forts that are surrounding the crossroads, or the fortified locations. These are just farms and things, but because of the nature of this ground and how much it was fought over, they tend to be fairly well fortified. We are almost done with this video in terms of how long I want it to go. But I want to get at least a turn in, maybe a couple, before I load this up. So we'll get some of the units moving, but this is really more of an intro to the battle. And yeah, I talked a lot. Hair stuff is still making me feel like I'm drunk. I misspoke about the guard. They're coming in at 1:30, not long after the battle starts. This is the 1 o'clock turn, before Cotter Bra starts. But I don't know what I want to do with them. I want to park them here. I don't want to commit them early. So, you know, I don't want to take losses on them, etc. There's no real penalty to committing them early. It just, my nature is to not do that. Now, if somehow the guard breaks, which I think is pretty unlikely at Ligny, we'll figure out some kind of penalty like the Waterloo penalty, because the French army is not prepared for that. They're not willing to accept that. So we'll go to whatever rules there are for the guard breaking over in Waterloo. And I don't remember what they are, but we'll look at them. The French moves open up, positioning ourselves here. This is technically illegal because I'm not moving towards my command, but give me some leeway here because this is just part of my plan. Yeah, why does that make it? Nah, don't worry about it. It's someplace stupid otherwise. We have Van Damme sliding over. He failed completely here. I did a melee. Meleeing across the stream doesn't even work. If you look at the terrain chart, these villages, they give a -2 to the melee for the attacker if you're not in the village itself, and then stream gives another -1. Well, if I go in column, that's a 0, so I get no multiplier at all. But coming in from here, I had a 2-to-1 attack. It failed completely, failed my morale checks. Boom, I'm out of there. That may cause some problems. Yes, I can cause casualties. I've got a couple of artillery just shelling the hell out of the town. And the Prussians probably don't really want to be there, to tell you the truth. But it does create sort of like in some of the, let me see if I can find it, because everything's, some of the Art of Siege games over there, Sevastopol especially, where there are like breakwaters before the town, before the main fortress. This is kind of like that. It's preventing the French from being able to move forward and put the amount of force that they want to on here, where there is a serious defensive position in place. Now that's a walled village, and it's significantly better than, well, a walled farm, so it's significantly better than the villages, actually. What else? We have Gerard coming on. We have Grouchy's Cav here, and that's about it. I noticed something that I had to do. Just my wife photocopied these suckers for me, and I'm sure you see them, but the grayscale didn't come out at all. I don't know what the hell's going on with this. I have to have her, I either have to look at the printer or try to convince her to try to figure out what's wrong with it. You know, there's some simple fix that I can find online, but it shouldn't be doing this shit with these lines here. It's this, you know, there's a way you can kind of modify the settings and it just slowly finds its way into printing correctly because there's plenty of ink. But so I had to mark down, you know, all the loss points here, and I had to dig up a pencil too, which I don't know where I lost my other one. It's probably over there, and it's really hard to get over there. I see it, and I see the eraser, and there are my reading glasses. I might need all that stuff. I have to crawl under the table to get there because everything is too tight. But whatever. And now we'll start with the Prussians and see where they go. And we move to 130. And Second Corps moving into position to attack those hills here. The Prussian position here. I had to move some units even up the First Corps, fatiguing it a little bit. I'm not too worried about that. Mainly to defend some artillery pieces that were forced to be left alone without any infantry supporting them, and just due to the setup rules, and then also just some repositioning so I could get some shots in if I'm going to spend the fatigue. I don't really charge fatigue for just some positional reargs. I don't, like if I just change facing or something. I don't really consider that to be a heavy enough thing to worry about. but I don't remember if it's supposed to be in the rules. And then here we have third corps positioning itself here with the cav pushed up here. I'm a little worried. So instead of going straight up against the cav, because attacking against cav is almost impossible. You advance forward towards cav, and they're just going to countercharge the crap out of you. I don't have much cav here. I have 3 units, and I'm facing Grouchy's main corps, so I'm not gonna be able to handle that. That's pretty clear. But if I can provide a little line along that stream, I might be able to prevent them from just knocking me out of the way. But they might be moving in charges real soon. I don't know what their orders are as the Prussians, but I'm a little worried they're going to come sliding in. I'm hoping my cav's enough to defend that, so I sent them across the stream. And that puts us to 130, where, assuming I gotta pay attention to this thing. Yeah, there are no Prussians coming in over here. And I'm going to try to catch that up and maybe make some kind of little text file or something that I can load up for people if they want it. Because this was a lot of work to coordinate what everything is. And then, like I said, there are a couple of units that there's just no roles within the campaign that you can directly ascertain when and where they're supposed to come in. Here at 1:30, the shit started hitting the fan, as it were. First of all, we had the Imperial Guard coming in. Grouchy, his cav came storming forward, smashed into the Prussian cav, drove one away. The other one, call it a stand there, but finally got this guy out of Saint-Amand, but at some casualties. And you can see there's another disordered unit. I think a gun got picked off, at least the crew did. So there's definitely pain involved in getting him out of there. Now, he routed out using the optional disorder rules in villages. Over here, Vendôme, charge, bayonets fixed. And then when I got here to La Haye, I said, I can't do it. I looked at the numbers, and going into a village with the strength that I had coming in just wasn't worth it. So I've got this here. I'm going to have to convert to line, which I should have been in, but I'm going to leave these kind of things alone. This kind of shit happens in real battles, and I don't want to back things up too much when they're reasonably believable. However, the artillery that was here got stormed away, and there was a small unit trying to defend that broke. And now it's up to the Prussians to try to fix things. Alrighty, Prussians on their side of the move, marching up here. Cav managed to charge. Oh, put this here. Blew away 2 French units with that charge. One was here. Actually, I can face this way. You can see them running, and they both took casualties from the charge as well. Also moved up, got some artillery in the way, and we're really kind of destroying that position that the French were in. It wasn't a good place for them to be. They should have gotten off there, but I had some plans, bad plans. Meanwhile, the French over here, a charge which got pulled back, and then a successful rally, because if you remember from way back when I did the rules back in the Spanish battles, when you voluntarily blow cav, it can rally on that turn, so it's kind of cool. So anyway, we turned them into square. We didn't manage, maybe we did a casualty, I don't really remember. And then over here, the Prussians pulled their cav out. You can see they've got a couple of blown units, infantry and such, not from the artillery here, knocked 1 unit back. We've actually abandoned our orders, and that's another thing. You're allowed to abandon orders pretty much at will, from my interpretation of the rules. I'm fiddling around with the fatigue rules still. I kind of made the decision, look, if I use my cav and it's just charging, I'm not going to charge that as a melee and a movement. I'm going to make it kind of one or the other, whichever works, you know? And I think I'm kind of leaning that way in general for the game, which is, look, I can remember what a core did, although this is a fairly large battle. I can remember what a core did in its turn, and if I charge it for movement and then it melees later in the turn, well, here I have to worry on a per unit basis. If units only meleeed, then I'm not going to charge them twice, even if other units moved. But if any unit moved and meleeed, other than Cav in their charges, I'm going to give the double charge, double cost in the fatigue. I just feel like the fatigue was racking up too quickly. You know, one unit goes and does something and the whole core is becoming more fatigued. That's bad enough. But especially when you're looking at like units that are already in place doing a melee combat, it looks kind of painful to me. Anyway, I think we kind of have our lines going here. The Prussians holding defensively here and trying to make an aggressive move here. Von Damme, which was really the biggest core, looks like he's in a lot of trouble here. But we'll see what happens. I think the French are going to probably try to commit the guard at this point, just because things look pretty damn bad real fast. We've gotten far enough. I don't see too much advantage to waiting. Cadabra is going to be activated now. This is starting setup is just, you know, fired off at this point. So, you know, I don't see much terrible value to trying to fit in more of the game in this one video. So we're going to put this one up, and well, this is going to be a long one, and at least for this system, it's not a, even though it takes a lot of space, I don't feel like this is a tremendous monster, even with all these turns and everything. I've played some of these games, and they play pretty quickly, actually, for what they're covering. So I'm pretty impressed with that aspect of it, at least. Or maybe a little bummed out, because I really like my big monsters, but I don't know. All right, up it goes.